1981, Americans popped in between $5 and $9 billion worth of quarters and tokens into the slots of arcade video games.
It's the video game years, and this is 1981. The systems, the culture, the games. A sequel to a shooter makes waves.
When they link together, it's a friggin' paradox.
Atari battles it out with Mattel.
You didn't usually, in a commercial, say who your competitor was.
And Nintendo's pet gorilla gets angry.
Then the barrel's just going to travel, it's going to drop down, it's going to come over, it's going to kill you.
Plus, Lord British returns. And Pac-Man gets a girlfriend. So pop in those tabletop batteries and look both ways before crossing the road. This is 1981.
Next stage.
Frankly, I'm swamped by admirers, so to get away from it all, I reach for Frogger. It's a challenge. Rip it.
Frogger is awesome because of Roadkill, and Roadkill is hilarious. Do you really need to know anything else? I don't.
Frogger is another classic arcade game. Came out in 1981. It was developed by Konami, and it came to the States through Sega Gremlin, their partnership. And the gameplay is classic.
It's very simple. Get to the other side and try to get around everybody.
You're a frog and you have to get from one side of the street or a river or what have you to the other.
Whenever you're in a crowded environment, everybody thinks of Frogger, right?
And he's hopping through traffic, and it's like a car's coming, you're like, oh no, you just hop this way, and boom, till you find a clearing, then you go up, and then you get to the middle, and you're like safe, but it's like, oh wait a minute, I'm not totally safe, I can't just stay there.
Well, like jumping on logs so you don't fall in the water. You're a frog, but you can't fall in the water. Yeah. You're a frog.
That's why Frogger is so appealing, because it's so simple.
But when the patterns really start going in the later levels, the different speeds for the logs and the turtles that dunk, the alligators, you can't step on the heads, only the tails.
You just like jump and then you die, and it's like, oh, I thought that was a log, but no, that was water. But it's different than the other water.
And so you got to like really be selective in your moves and what's the word I'm looking for here? Strategic.
One of the things that people don't know about Frogger is that when you complete the level in Frogger, people never look at the Frogger's face.
And he's a frog, dressed up very dapper-like.
Yeah, he's got a tie, he's got a suitcase.
Can you even see that in the game, or is it just in the arcades?
Just in the arcade side art. I always found that weird too.
So all the frogs, when you complete the frogs, look next time and you'll see these hearts pop up. It's crazy. No one ever realized that.
And then there's the pink girl frogs that hop on your back. Should that be the other way around?
Ooh, yeah. Watch me sweat.
Oh. I never knew when I was young, but now I understand. Now I understand. There's massive sexual overtones in Frogger.
Push it.
I love Frogger for the simple, fun gameplay and the simple little tunes that you hear throughout the game, like Camptown Races, Yankee Doodle, and not just American ditties either. You're going to hear some Japanese jingles. It was made by Konami of Japan. So the opening track that we all know and love is actually Inu no Omowari-san, which is Japanese for dog policeman. Arigato.
It's an incredibly fun game that manages to be fun by not changing the visuals very often, but by changing the variables in play, and that keeps it fresh and interesting.
In subsequent years, a lot of clones were done in that style of hopping across a freeway and avoiding getting smushed by something.
Frogger inevitably got its clone by Activision, actually. Wow. Yeah, called Freeway. In the form of Freeway. Yeah. So Freeway, you play as a chicken. He has to cross the road. And why does he have to cross the road? Because you can't move left or right to walk down the sidewalk. It's like someone looked at Frogger and said, we gotta do that, but take away fun. Yeah.
People who were there back in the day, people who were teenagers back in the day, still fondly remember and look back on And the number one exhibit for that is that Frogger was featured in an episode of Seinfeld.
I love that in order to maintain his high score at the local pizzeria, he had to have a power generator created so that he could transfer the Frogger machine to his apartment but still maintain his high score.
Want to hear a joke? Why did the Frogger cross the road? It didn't.
Arcade break.
Ladybug by Universal.
Basically a Pac-Man rip-off clone.
Collect dots, and you get letters to spell special and extra.
And normally I don't like clones of other games, but this was a good one.
They did introduce something kind of new to the whole thing, that is altering the maze.
Now that's how you make a clone of a game. You innovate on it, and that's exactly what Ladybug did.
As you avoid your little insect enemies trying to eat your ladybug, there's little green trap doors that you can use to trap them and get away from them. So just that little spin itself makes it one of the more unique maze games that came out in the early 80s.
I also like that when you die, you turn into a pair of wings and a halo as you float to heaven. I guess ladybugs aren't so lucky after all.
It was not received very well, you know, in the arcades. However, when it was ported to the ColecoVision, it did experience some moderate success.
I like Ladybug. I think it's unique. I think it's cute. It's fun. Yay, Ladybug! Woo!
Game over.
The Entex Select-A-Game certainly existed.
Entex, which is a company that nobody knows about, released the Entex Select-A-Game.
It was very notable for being the first portable system, gaming system with, interchangeable cartridges. And that's what anybody remembers it for. And by anybody, I mean maybe 1 in 100,000 people.
It came with Space Invaders 2, which was cool. And one of the games they had produced for it was Pac-Man 2, and so Coleco sued the hell out of them because Coleco owned the rights to the handheld version of Pac-Man at the time.
It had interchangeable games, and it preceded Entex's Adventurevision, which came out the following year, so it didn't have a long life.
Only wackos own this.
So here's Pac-Man 2, which was on the Entex Select-A-Game, but they also released it as a standalone, and it's the same game, and it's actually 2 players.
It's the APF MP1000 of 1981.
The Entex Select-A-Game was important because it sort of paved the way for other handheld consoles where you swapped out the games, and we followed up by the Adventurevision in '82, but you're gonna have to wait for that exciting story.
Wonder what my cat's doing right now.
Insert point.
Galaga!
Galaga was the sequel to the 1979 shooter Galaxian.
Galaxian was very big when it came out. It had a lot of firsts, all right? But Galaga, its sequel,
some people will claim a superior game,
is just the far superior game.
This was the prime example of how to do a sequel right.
For one thing, it didn't have that Space Invader one bullet at a time style, and it also had a challenging stage where the player got to shoot enemies as they literally waltzed across the screen.
It was a pretty good graphical improvement over the first one too.
It actually was.
Those little space butterflies, what are they doing up there? There's no air to push, so what do they get? They're just flopping around in space and then they just go.
Galaga is a lot like the Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo of shooters back then. They took it, and Galaxian was a fairly slow game, and Galaga actually speeds it up.
Galaxian, you could only go pew. Galaga, you could go pew, pew, pew.
That was the one where they moved. Okay, it wasn't that was Space Invaders.
In Space Invaders and Galaxian and all those other clones of Space Invaders, the enemies were always, as soon as you start stage, preset. They were there, one pattern, that's it. Galaga mixed that up with having them actually come in the screen and set up their formations.
That was the first game with a familiar, wasn't it? A double ship.
Probably the coolest feature in Galaga is the ability to use dual ships, or dualies as I like to call it.
Which is a scam. Now in the game, you can allow your ship to be taken up by one of the enemies in the tractor beam, and if you shoot that guy, the ship falls and you get a double whammy. You get 2 side-by-side space shooters.
and then you just wreak holy destruction upon your enemy from now until the cows come home, or aliens come home.
It's awesome, but as a kid, I was thinking, what's going on here, you know? Assuming this is like Pac-Man, you know, your character dies and you have an extra life, your character is more or less resurrected.
It's a scam because it's easier to get killed and you lose that life like a normal Galaga death. I don't like it, never did it.
So what's going on in Galaga? I mean, if your ship just got captured, but then you've got a life left and your character pops up at the bottom of the screen, who's that and who am I? And then when they link together, it's a friggin' paradox.
Galaga's been released on just about every single platform.
Yeah.
And this is another game that was distributed by Midway in America. So yet again, I mean, you had that and Ms. Pac-Man. You had a great 1-2 punch. Midway had a great year in '81, all right?
But it was a Namco game, and to this day, it still is a Namco game, and is on every single collection they put out.
They got new Galagas coming out. They got new Pac-Mans.
They've made so many incarnations and sequels to that game.
Okay, the Pac-Mans are pretty good. Galaga.
I remember Galaga 90 for the TurboGrafx, which seemed odd.
Yeah.
I think it was Galaga 89 in Japan. Galaga 90 was leaps and bounds better.
It's the 90s, yo!
Galaga, man, it's just one of those machines that whenever I see it, I have to play it, and I have to, you know, get in the zone and just score all those points and fail miserably at around stage 12.
Galaga just blends in for me with all the other shooters. I don't know, it just is like, there's so much space. It was a space age of gaming.
I guess it's influential, they're all influential.
Because I shot my own ship, because I'm terrible, and then my whole day is ruined, and what the frick do I play this game for? Yeah, that's Galaga, I love it.
It influenced me to walk past the Galaga machine to something else that I'd rather play. Oh, I got so sick of those shooters.
And now, here is the gaming innovation of 1981.
Welcome to the gaming innovation of 1981. What new technology graced the world and changed the face of gaming forever? The Intellivision Play Cable, generally regarded as the first way for people to download video games from the comfort of their own home. It worked by broadcasting video game code on a loop via cable. People could select what game they wanted via the Play Cable and then download it onto their own system. Unfortunately, by 1983, Intellivision games had generally gotten so big, 8K of memory and up, that there was no space on the Play Cable to actually download these newer games, and the service was discontinued. But a very similar technology was used by Sega to create the Sega Channel later in the 90s. That's the video game innovation of 1981. I'll see you next year, and don't forget, it's not just nostalgia, it's science.